The original Gladiator movie is an absolute classic and something to be proud of. It might not have the tightest of stories or greatest of things like effects, but the performances, action, and lasting effect on men to want to recreate a certain scene every time they see a field of wheat is just downright amazing. Athletes are even known to bend down and take a piece of sand or grass before a match and do the gladiator thing. It is truly a movie that has lasted the test of time. So, why not make a sequel 24 years later with the original director who is arguably washed up and way past his prime? Well, one reason is because of the movie we got. I'll be honest, I didn't see this movie in the theater, so maybe the lack of the big screen experience affected my reception of it, but since it took me 2 days to actually sit through it all, I am kind of glad that I had the pause function thanks to my friend, Captain Jack. Gladiator 2 is 2.5 hours of, well, that was fast, and oh man, is it done yet? Moments. It felt very long, pretty much anytime they weren't fighting, and you just wanted them to keep going back to there so they could fight in the Colosseum inevitably against some sort of exotic to Rome animal. Alright, so with that, I guess you need a quick plot synopsis. Gladiator 2 is about Lucius, the small kid from the first movie, and how he was defeated and captured in battle in Africa. During said battle, he loses his warrior wife because she shot at Pedro Pascal, and he was understandably a little upset by that. So he ordered to return fire and was a little bit more successful. Lucius gets plot armor bonked on the head and knocked out instead of killed troped, and then is taken to Rome. He fights some monkeys to prove his skill and impresses Denzel Washington, who buys him to be a gladiator. Denzel goes, hey, if you do everything I say and do good gladiator work, then I will deliver you Pedro Pascal so you can get your revenge. So yeah, Lucius starts fighting, at first at this private party for the cringe emperors, where he at some point recited poetry at them, and then he fights at the Colosseum so he can get his revenge on Pablo. And, occasionally talk about how Rome sucks. While the fights are going on, you learn that Pablo isn't a fan of the current Rome and wants to bring Marcus Aurelius' dream to reality because the cringe emperors are expansion and war hungry, and Rome is becoming too large to feed its people. He's now married, or at least giving his Roman expansion to Lucius's mom, and they're trying to bring down the emperors together and free Rome. We also see Denzel make a large wager to a senator. Okay, back to Lucius while he is fighting a big rhino riding man with some other gladiators, and he does the sand pick up and rub thing that Marcus did, which tips off his mom to figure out who he really is because why not? He then does the dumbest Toro bullfighter with magic smoke bomb like sand thing I've ever seen, and this makes the rhino hit the Colosseum wall, which I guess makes it not want to fight anymore. As you see, it's just kind of fine and doing its own thing on the side with a broken horn later. He fights the rider man a bit and he loses.
I lost. I lost? Wait a minute, I'm not supposed to lose. Let me see the script.
But the emperors give him the thumbs up to save him because I guess them and the crowd like him. He goes, fuck that, I don't need Roman sympathy, and kills the Rhino Man. And at one point, the emperors go, hey, you remember that guy who did poetry at us? How did it go again? Starts to recite it. And then Lucius' mom goes, oh yeah, that's definitely the son I sent away and abandoned years ago after Maximus died, and he tried to get him away. Blah, blah, blah. She goes to see him, and he goes, screw you, mom, you abandoned me. She cries and tells Pedro everything. Denzel is seen fishing for information and is clearly planning something, and then double or nothing's his bet with the senator. Finally, you get the naval battle from the trailer, and Lucius wins, of course, which means Denzel wins the bet, and now the senator who can't pay up is in his pocket and becomes his informant. Immediately tells Denzel the plan that he overheard about Pedro gathering an army to overthrow the emperor.
That was easy.
That was easy.
And so Danzel turns him in so he can get close to the said cringe emperors. Danzel then convinces the emperors to let Pedro fight in the Colosseum so he can, aka his delivery to Lucius, in keeping his promise. Pedro fights Lucius and tells him that, hey, he loves his mom and would have followed Maximus. And this just magically changes Lucius's entire personality. He decides to just spare Pedro. I guess he loves his mom again, and now he likes Rome once more and wants to try to help save it. But oops, the emperors have Pedro killed instead. Lucius somehow figures out that Danzel is secretly the bad guy and goes, I'm not going to do your bidding anymore, and he wants to stop him now for some reason. Killing Pedro has upset the people of Rome, and Danzel uses this opportunity to pit the emperors against each other. He then gets the younger one and kind of helps kill the older, smarter one so he can manipulate the deranged, stupid young one and essentially become the new emperor.
Ha! Boom, baby!
The Senate doesn't seem to have much of a problem with this and just kind of gives him command of the armies. I don't know, this scene was quick and just dumb, and politics mean nothing in the world of Gladiator. Okay, so now Lucius has rallied the gladiators to free themselves and Rome, and he puts on Maximus plated member berries. He, for some reason, is being sent into the Colosseum to save his mother alone from some emperor soldiers, but since he now has the gladiator army or whatever, they all go out instead and fights, and he wins. Danzel kills the boy emperor and then shoots Lucius' mom with an arrow. Man, the bow and arrow is the real MVP of this movie. He has gotten 3 main characters so far in a row. Lucius is big mad and chases Danzel, who is going to confront the army of Pedro Pascal that is coming to be led by Lucius because he sent a messenger with the ring that I guess is enough to prove to a general that has not met really any of these people that he is the prince. Lucius, who just, beat everybody in the Colosseum and got out somehow, just rides past the enemy army who do not care to stop him or challenge him at all, and then he challenges Danzel to a fight. Danzel stupidly agrees because of the gods or something, forgetting that he's an old man, and they fight. Which was the second most disappointing fight between a young white guy I don't really give a fuck about and a seasoned elderly black gentleman who I have ever seen this month. But yeah, Lucius wins the sword fight because Maximus's armor suddenly started working as opposed to all other armor in this movie, and he then does a speech about the Roman dream and then goes back to the Colosseum to mourn his mom and ask the spirit of his dad in the Colosseum sand what to do next. We see a hand in a wheat field, and the movie is over. In terms of performance, there is no one that is really stand out or that good. The Emperors are way too over the top. Pedro is always hit or miss for me, and this one is kind of a miss, and honestly, there's not much script or character-wise for him really to do to stretch his skills, and he seemed a little awkward sometimes, and honestly, he just needs to be stopped being selected for every movie. Saying Paul Mescalis is a discount Russell Crowe would be a bit of an insult to Russell Crowe. He seems like he would be good in a nothing but action kind of movie, but his dead, soulless eyes and barely moving facial expressions were just boring. He had no energy or presence on the screen. Danzel did good, I guess. I mean, it's Denzel Washington. His most phoned-in performances are always still well done. His character was just kind of like a Roman gangster hunting for power, and for some reason really liked making jokes about preferring to have sex with men. I don't know. He did it twice. It didn't really mean anything. It didn't really lead to anything. They didn't use it as information to then trap him because they sent him a boy and then ambush. I don't know. It's just kind of weird that it happened twice. The action overall was okay. It was nothing really, oh my god, that was crazy kind of stuff. If you liked the tiger fight in the first Gladiator, well then here you go. Gladiator 2, 90% of the battles has some sort of animal in it. Like roided up monkeys, rhinos, and sharks. The naval battle showed up in the trailer ended up being a little lackluster. I know historically it was based on some reality, but to actually see the boats just kind of slowly rowing around while arrows keep conveniently missing very open characters, and then this kind of awkward shot of them ramming the other boat. It was kind of boring. I didn't fully work for me, and sometimes it's just kind of like, what is happening? I kind of touched there on the idea of historical accuracy for a bit. And in case for some reason you're watching this right now and you're curious about if Gladiator 2 is historically accurate, I would say no. Granted, the first movie isn't really either, and it's from a director that had Napoleon shoot the pyramids with a cannon, but the other way, Gladiator 2 is probably, I guess, more loosely based on some potential ideas formulated by historic findings. Like someone probably said, hey, there is some evidence that the Romans knew what rhinos were and might have had one or two in the Colosseum as a gimmick. Well, that was clearly enough for Ridley Scott to just say, hey, they had their severed heads in all their banquets and used their horns as aphrodisiacs during the orgies, along with riding them in the battle at the Colosseum all the time. I don't know. They just probably just thought it was cool and liked to do the CG animals. Okay, let's wrap this up because I really don't want to have to edit much of this, and there was not much to say for a movie of this caliber. Gladiator 2 is just a rehashed version of the first Gladiator, and just not done as well. It completely reset Rome, so like the first movie never really happened. Everyone in Rome forgot about Maximus and what he did, well, except of course when they were doing, hey, remember Gladiator moments. The setup and payoffs just didn't feel earned. The characters are shallow, and the changes to the story to try to add some complexity and differences just kind of made it worse and I don't know, harder to control. Because while it felt like it took so long to watch, there also felt like so much was left on the cutting floor. The little scenes that would help show Lucius's turn into hating Rome to liking Rome again, and how all the gladiators first didn't really like or respect him when he got there, and then they ended up loving him and having them lead them in the end. Just like other bad movies, people learned information off screen or by reading the script. It pales in so much comparison to the original, and while from behind the scenes stuff it seemed like all the actors had a great time making it, I unfortunately did not feel the same watching it. But I think the general audience will be able to turn their brains off enough to get a decent amount of enjoyment out of it, and there isn't really anything better to check out in theaters right now. I don't blame you if you want to go give it a try, and with a budget of $250 million, they really need you to be curious enough to go to the cinema. But honestly, my advice is to just stay home, rewatch the first one, or hey, maybe finally show it to your kid or kids, and just sit down and enjoy and imagine yourself walking through the wheat fields.